Hey everybody, Meredith. I am back with another Meet the Experts interview for the Home Builder Growth Summit. And this time I actually have an expert. Okay, well, I don't know, I guess. Dave Betcher with eciLasso. You are indeed an expert on all things lead management, lead conversion, CRM, what else? Running dogs?
Well, yeah, all of those kinds of things. And you say, I was just thinking of my background a little bit here and thinking about the 10,000 hours to become an expert and putting that into, so I think I'm a double expert there.
Okay.
I think I'm an expert squared just because of the hours that I have been doing this. I was looking at photos from my social media platforms about 10 years ago and how, I just can't believe how things have evolved. My eyes, the bags under my eyes, and the gray hair, and I think that comes with being an expert as well. So
yes.
There you go. Really good to see you, Meredith.
You too. And I think it is true that men become more distinguished and handsome. With their lines and salt and pepper, and I'm not sure that's true of us women folk, but I'll let somebody else decide the answer to that. So one of the things I definitely wanted to talk to you about was understanding what kind of challenges that you're seeing right now. Now, granted, when people are listening to this, it'll be mid-November. We'll be headed into some holiday time. Yeah. But as we're recording it in September, what kind of challenges are you guys seeing out there that your clients are facing or that you're facing in your area of expertise?
Well, there's two that I'm seeing right off the bat. I'm seeing still at this point, and today is the end of September, so I'm seeing too many leads, if you can believe it, and I'm seeing not enough resources internally. So those are two things that I'm seeing right now. So we don't have enough people to manage the amount of lead flow that's coming in. The other challenge that I'm seeing now, I'm on to challenge number 3 already. The other challenge that I'm seeing is that our salespeople are becoming a little lackadaisical in terms of how they're following up. They don't, along with not having resources and having too many leads, that then brings us to the next step of not treating each customer uniquely, and in that case, not really following up with our customer experience and really our pledge to that customer experience. And when I say this, I'm really talking on behalf of the clients. And then the last thing, 4 challenges right away, is I see that people are not spending enough time training and learning about the different applications that they need to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So even if it's learning how to do a proper Zoom call, whether it's learning your CRM properly, how to do effective follow-up, what are some of the things that I can do myself as an individual to continue my own personal growth? And many times I see that just slides back a little bit and we get back into our routines. So those are some of the things that I'm seeing right now in the marketplace. I'm really trying to be diligently and just focusing in on those 4 things right now with our clients.
Yeah. I mean, it's so tempting to try to solve our quote unquote problems or challenges with some new answer, when a lot of times we already have a tool like Lasso that our builder has invested in for us and provided us with, but we've never really taken the time to learn more than about 5% of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing. So for those of you listening out there, don't get tempted to think, I need a new app, or I need a different thing, or I've got to figure out, Einstein's formula to whatever. It's really some of the more simple things, and it's the tools you already have that you want to explore further and learn how to really use effectively.
Yeah, and I don't even see it being the software is not necessarily the issue. In some cases it is, but I don't really see it as the software being the issue. Sometimes it's understanding the bigger corporate issue that is happening internally. Like, why do we need to follow up with our leads? That's always a good one. Why do we need to input information into our database? Why do we need to complete appointments that our OSCs have created for us? Those are the types of things which sometimes are not shared amongst the organization. And one of the things that I'm really targeting right now is really focusing on transparency within an organization when it comes to data, and just really making sure that the data is shared and there's an understanding of why this is important from the organization. And it's one thing if you're an agent and you're in a model home and you get a new lead and you either choose to do something with it or not, but there's really an impact, and the impact goes much further than that lead not buying a home from you. The impact sometimes starts with marketing, and if that lead was generated through Zillow, a lot of money is spent on Zillow to generate that lead. Then the impact is when a lead from Zillow is generated and we're not closing any of those Zillow leads because we're not following up with any of those Zillow leads, sometimes we can lose the motivation to advertise with a specific source that may be driving really good traffic to us. So there's really an impact from sales and marketing. And not to say that marketing drives the ship here or wags the dog necessarily, but it's really the two components of the business have to work together, and everybody has to be on the same page and has to have an understanding of the importance that each of the individual components of the organization has in creating that overall success within the sales organization. And that's kind of what we're focusing on right now. So really having transparency and visibility about data, so looking at some pretty detailed reporting, but sharing that reporting with the stakeholders. A lot of those stakeholders are sales agents because they sometimes get lost and they don't understand the impact that they have in their day-to-day role and how it affects the entire organization, with the exception of writing contracts. And that's a lot of times that's what we're seeing right now.
And that's one of my favorite, that transparency idea, one of my favorite numbers, data points to be transparent about across the organization is the average cost per lead.
Yeah.
Because I find that when salespeople know that number, it's like, I want you to see every one of those phone calls that are coming in and causing your phone to ring. And maybe not as much in a COVID world, but everyone that does walk in through the door. Yeah. I want you to see tattooed on their forehead $525 or $1,250, whatever your average cost per lead is based on your product, your price point, your market, it can really vary. But whatever that number is, we should all know that number because I feel like it helps us appreciate those leads a little more. What do you think?
And that is what I go when I'm talking with sales agents. That's the first thing that I start with is the cost is the cost of that lead, and it's a pretty simple calculation. What we take is how much we spend on marketing and how many leads we're generating, and that gives us that number of a cost per lead. And on average, we're looking at right now between $90 and $140 per lead. And if you can think of a case, let's kind of get out of the marketing realm and let's go into the construction realm. If we were spending $140 on something and we're doing that over and over and over, we would never do it. Every nail was $140. Would we waste that nail? And the answer is absolutely not. No. So it's really just a different approach. And sometimes we don't position that with our sales agents, or we don't make it clear enough of what the impact is, and really to take advantage of every single lead within the database that registers, whether we deem them a good lead or not. That's not necessarily up to us as salespeople to define. We have a commitment, and we made that commitment when we got into the sales industry, right? We said that, and we're so fortunate in new home sales that leads are given to us. We don't have to go out and get them. We don't have to cold call. We can actually just sit back and wait sometimes, but we have a commitment to the customer that has given us their information. And we know that coming from a website, less than 1% of people that go to your website will actually register. So that's a very small number compared to the bigger picture. So we have to be absolutely considerate, understanding that this is a prospect, and that prospect is a potential customer of mine that I'm going to get a commission on it. That's the way that we kind of have to position it. So understanding the cost per lead. Now, then we have to look at our marketing numbers and our sales numbers. So the two organizations have to talk. And we have to know how many leads are being generated, and sales managers have to be able to position that with their agents when they're talking to them. If you got 100 new leads this week, that's $10,000 that has been generated for those 100 leads. And if we're not doing anything with those 100 leads, then we have wasted $10,000. And it's never fine on the construction side. But sometimes it gets overlooked on the sales and marketing side, and we need to reposition that, don't we?
True. Yeah.
And we really do.
As leaders, if you're the owner of a home building company, sales and marketing, leadership, this idea of this transparency, I mean, what a great reason he's just given you to give to your sales and marketing teams as to why we need to use the CRM. Look, we're trying to be transparent with you.
Yeah.
So that you see where money's being spent, what our numbers look like. It's not, because, for a long time, Dave, I think the feeling has been like, well, this is so you can kind of big brother or micromanage me. But if we flip that script and say, no, this isn't micromanaging anybody. This is providing transparency across an organization for all the different things we're doing. And this is part of our culture and our commitment to each other as team members. Dang, that's a whole other way of looking at it.
Yeah, you have flipped the page there. And again, we always think we're being audited, right? Oh, companies want to audit me. That is not the case. That is not the case.
No.
This is in many times a gift that is being given to salespeople to allow them to manage their processes, their leads, to do what they need to do and focus on where they need to focus, but understanding that everybody else is still going to be communicated on an ongoing basis with you. And that's the important thing to understand. And sometimes again, that isn't necessarily positioned. So those are some of the challenges, right? And it's really up to us as professionals, as managers, to ensure that everybody that has a responsibility, and the responsibility is always to the customer, isn't it? Right? When somebody has taken the time to walk into one of our model homes, fill out a registration form, go to Zillow and choose us, when they've been looking at hundreds of different communities to choose us, we now have a responsibility for that prospect to ensure that they have the information we need and building that relationship. And that's another thing that sometimes gets overlooked, is how important the relationship is, regardless if it's a business to business relationship or if it's a business to consumer relationship. That is what the differentiator is in many cases, isn't it, Meredith?
It is. And you all at eciLasso have set the standard on that better than any company, I think, in our industry. The way that yourself and Angela McKay and many members of your team have all set out to build relationships with your clients, with other associate type vendor types like myself. I mean, you guys have really shown and demonstrated what you're advocating for. And it's pretty cool when that comes together. And that's where, if you want your people to use their CRM and give you information, then again, as a culture, what information and how transparent are you back to them? Because that's really how we all start to respect each other and work together.
Yeah, and there's an absolute commitment to that as well. I mean, it's one thing to have a relationship like you and I do, or we have with any of our friends, but there's also a commitment to that. And there's a commitment to follow through with what you say. There's a commitment to ensure that every relationship is valued and that we cherish them. And by doing that, and I think many times, we sometimes underestimate the importance of these relationships that we have. And looking at a relationship with you, Meredith, for example, you are never going to buy a CRM system from me, but you have influence with so many other people that allows us and not to ever use that relationship or take advantage of that relationship, but also understand the importance of it, that people like to deal with people that they know, people that have given a referral, people that they trust. And by building the relationships that we all have, it almost becomes underwritten that those trust, reliability, follow through, all those things are inherently there when you start to work with somebody. And I think by having those relationships and long-standing relationships, it doesn't happen overnight. And if you look at any product, whether you're building a new home, you're selling a CRM system, there are hundreds, thousands of options out there for people to choose. So many choices. Yeah. And what you need to do, it's way too many for people to comprehend. So what they need to do is they need to, number one, have a great experience. And that great experience includes proper follow-up. It includes personal personal touches. It includes doing the right thing for your customer when times are tough, doing the right thing, making an impact. A lot of times I see a lot of people using the kind of mentality of stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime, where they don't necessarily see the long-term value of a client or a customer. They see the immediate impact and the short-term results, which may have a small impact on cash flow at the time, but not necessarily the long-term relationship or the long-term value of a client. A lot of times we look at what is immediately in front of me. How many deals can I sign today, right? Where it's not really looking at the long-term value and doing the right thing for our customers. And that's something that I've really always focused on personally, and a lot of people in our team, and a lot of the relationships that we've all created, yourself included, Meredith. We've really focused on that ensure that, and that's always been really important for us.
And it makes you feel safe in making a referral. So when builders ask me about CRM and they're considering some out of the industry popular one that we shall not name, and it's like, well, sure, you could go with that and it would probably work out okay. But I can tell you this, I've used this one. I've used Lasso this many times. It's already implemented this many places. And I know exactly who I can call over there because I have relationships with them. Should we need additional assistance or insight or whatever, we have a relationship. Now, if we think about that, translating it into the new home sales world, I think our salespeople, you guys, maybe because people buy a home every 5-7 years, so you're not thinking repeat customer, but don't forget your realtor partners who you're also selling to. Those are the folks that could bring you person after person after person after person, where relationships are going to have an immediate impact on you. If you're in a neighborhood that's just opening up and you've got a lot of homes to sell.
Yeah.
Now, of course, over time, the home buyers themselves could be repeat or referral, but I think we're being short-sighted on the realtor relationships.
I don't disagree at all. And we've looking at the larger picture and not looking at a realtor, looking at the amount of influence and impact that they have and bringing different clients to us and focusing in on that. And there's a cost to having a realtor relationship. There's really a cost to every relationship, but understanding again the larger picture.
It's an investment. It's an investment.
Well, it's interesting. I've in some markets, on a registration form, they will have the question, are you working with a realtor, on the registration form? And in many cases, that would be a good buying signal that somebody's working with I have seen builders and multifamily home developers that will see that, are you working with a realtor question, and they will exclude them from any additional follow-up because they don't want clients who are working with realtors. And it's that type of mentality, that type of short-sightedness that sometimes you have to really question in a culture within an organization. And that's really the, stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime type of mentality, where you don't see the larger picture and the larger relationships that you can create. It's frustrating to see, but at the same time, all we can do is present the benefits, and people will make their own decisions. They absolutely will on how they want to run their organizations.
Yeah. And not other than COVID itself, because COVID was a huge surprise. What has surprised you the most about what's happened since, in terms of our industry, our work, our builders? What has surprised you?
I have seen people take a much more a much higher level of interest in the relationships that they have, and they have started to understand the different technologies that that are being used to ensure that they can continue their business. And when we look at things like Zoom calls, for example, and understanding the importance of not just being able to, click on a link to open up a Zoom meeting, but what does my background look like? What do I look like? What impact does that have on the conversation that we're having, and understanding what people's reactions are like, and being able to judge that and be able to treat this as a face-to-face communication. But it's a lot more different than face-to-face, because I would never stare at you like I am right now.
So intently. I know. When we do get back to face-to-face, I mean, we're going to have to work it like not staring so hard at each other.
We absolutely will.
It is weird. I know.
But I've seen people, and I won't say everyone, but I've seen the top producers.
The overall trend.
Not be forced to learn technology, not be forced to, understand something new, but really taking the initiative to say, if I want to be successful, this is going to differentiate me. I was doing a webinar with Jeff Shore last week, and the webinar was on follow-up, which is always an important topic, and sometimes it gets dropped off. I'm not sure. I think salespeople is not their favorite thing to be doing. But looking at what could I do to change the way that I follow up with my prospects? What are some of the things? What could I learn personally? What book could I read to ensure that I am doing everything I can possibly do to be the best that I can be? And I'm seeing a lot more people start to take on that initiative and start to ask questions. And that is really what I'm enjoying to see, because I haven't seen that before. It's always been, we talk about the audit. Oh, I'm being audited, and this is only used for the company to audit what I'm doing. But that isn't the case, right? People are taking the initiative, and they're seeing the results. And that's what I'm loving. And that's what I'm focusing the majority of my efforts on, is just making sure that people are understanding, not just how to do something, but why to do it, right? And what are some of the other things that we can do to differentiate ourselves? Because it's that differentiation, isn't it, Meredith? It's not just about, here's my home, it's 3,000 square feet, it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, it's got tile backsplash and Kohler fixtures. That's not what it's about anymore. It's what can I do? What are the pain points that we're trying to solve for you, and how can I solve them, at the same time building the relationship between us? And that's what I'm trying to, instill in many cases with our with our clients. And in most cases, it has an impact.
What's interesting about COVID and the pandemic was, I think it was big enough, literally being the first one we've ever experienced, and being global, and it involved our health. Like, it kind of hit all the markers on, this is not a joke, this is not a drill, this is really serious, that it got our attention collectively enough that you're right. I think people, maybe for the first time in a long time, had to look at themselves, and personally, professionally, and just say, kind of, where am I coming up? Where's my deficiencies, or where do I need to improve? And time is of the essence. Like, I don't have a choice. This is a serious situation, but what an opportunity, right?
Incredible, isn't
right.
it?
So we would never minimize the people who've been ill or pass away. We know that this has been very serious and devastating, and we wish those people nothing but the best, and wouldn't make light of it. But at the same time, for the rest of us that are trying to manage our way through, I would love to see people reframe it as, what an opportunity.
Incredible.
We have been through, we actually, because we've been kind of confined to home, have had the time and space to look at different aspects of our lives and say, this might need some attention.
Yeah, and both personally and professionally. And that's something that certainly I have. I just mentioned to you that, we just bought a home because it was the right time. We needed to change our environment to fit our needs, because we're both working from home now. We're not out of the office. We've got old dogs, and our dogs need to be able to. And those are some of the things that we don't necessarily think about when you're first moving into a home, for example. And I think a lot of people are having success because there are so many people that are willing to change now, and really to evaluate their life and their lifestyle and say, is this really where I want to be, or is there an opportunity somewhere else? Is my lifestyle going to be better suited in a different location or in a different style of home? And that is where I'm seeing a lot of the success happening. And I think we can all appreciate that there's a lot of interest in buying new homes right now. And obviously there's been a lot of builders who've had tremendous success over the last 6 months during this time frame. I'm seeing that starting to level out a little bit now. I'm seeing that that I think there's still a lot of opportunities that haven't been fully taken advantage of, that builders can certainly now start to focus in on what they weren't able to do before. They can now start to take a little bit of advantage of, start to put proper systems into place where before they didn't have necessarily the time to do it. Look at their resources internally, either move people around in an organization or start to focus in on, this is a need that we have. We still have builders without online sales counselors right now, and large builders without online sales counselors, and understanding that the numbers are close to 100% that people shopping for a new home will shop online, and there's an expectation that a relationship will be built from filling out a registration form, and we've all been talking about this for the last 10 years, but at the same time, it's just coming so much to the forefront now, and people are starting to recognize that there is change. We're looking at different technologies in the marketplace now, looking at self-tour applications, which allow people to book tours themselves, which we never would have thought of 10 years ago. And even though there were these companies that were out there providing these types of services, it was so foreign to us. So never being afraid to look at, what is going to be the next trend? And instead of waiting, jumping in, because it can only have benefits. It might be a little upfront pain when you invest in something, but the long-term benefits and what it's going to do for, again, always going back to the relationship and the customer experience, and what their vision about you as an organization, and how do they treat you individually. One of my favorite lines is, no prospect ever cares about your sales process. But what a salesperson should be doing is worrying about the buying process of my prospect, and really starting to understand that. So we talk about sales process a lot, and that's the big buzzword, and points of conversation, and what do we talk about on day number 3 compared to day number 7, but really kind of focusing on what's the buying process of somebody now, and kind of repositioning that sales process so it kind of matches the customer, instead of what we're doing ourselves to check off the box that we followed up with somebody today. Which happens a lot.
Right?
It happens a lot. Yeah.
Because of the sales success over the past 6 months, we're seeing that quick move-in home inventory is getting low or lower.
If
there's any.
Or it doesn't exist.
The build on your lot builders are struggling to find lots for build on your lot. So it seems to me that fourth quarter, especially by the time everybody's listening to this, and into first quarter 2021, we're going to have a real emphasis on pre-sales again over quick move-ins, which I would think would then make the follow-up process even more important. So talk to us about the messaging and the approach on follow-up when we're pre-selling to be built construction versus inventory.
Well, I guess the first thing to recognize is we have a huge backlog of leads in our database that have never been properly communicated with. They may have been sent some marketing messages, but it's really important that we re-engage our leads, and we start to really focus in and start to qualify people that would be still interested. And whether that is just sending out a nice re-engagement letter in terms of, and it can be a marketing email, but just starting to re-engage people and understanding that we've got this huge backlog. And if we have 1,000 leads in our database that have never responded to us, they registered, but they didn't respond, or they called in and never got back to us when we responded back, there's still opportunities there. So really starting to get a better understanding and looking at the numbers, that if we reach out to 1,000 people and we get 100 responses back, we're at a pretty good conversion rate. We've already bought and paid for those 1,000 leads, and each one of them cost us $100. So we're into it for $100,000 already. So what's the detriment? for doing additional follow-up with people that registered 3 months ago.
Yeah.
The one thing with pre-sale as well, and if I look at a lot of stats and what people do, and in a typical pre-sale environment, many times you would put a sign up on the site, and you might have a registration form on your website saying "Coming soon, register now for more information." And typically, you will generate some interest for that. It's really interesting to see who actually buys a home and the time frame that they register from the moment that we put our signage up to when we go and write contracts at a pre-sale environment. Who's actually buying and when did they register? And what we have found predominantly, over 90%, the people that buy a home from us are the people that register within 30 days of that project actually writing contracts. And typically the reason for that is that we haven't done a good enough job communicating with our prospects, keeping them up to date about the future community and what's going to be happening and keeping it top of mind for them. So that's always one thing to keep in mind, that I have a moment in time where I am interested in something. It could be this, whatever idea I have at that moment, I will put my hat into the ring and register, okay? But then I forget about that later today. Yeah. So if you don't communicate with me, the fact that you're going to start writing contracts in 6 months in your pre-sale community, it's so far gone in my mind. So we have wasted those opportunities. And I think on the marketing side, we say, oh, we're doing such a great job on our pre-sale. We've generated all of these leads, and the salespeople, when we get a sales team there, because there won't be a sales team there for a couple of months, when we do get a sales team, they're just going to write, they're going to sell this community through. And what happens is just we've never done a great job in communicating the status of the community and the importance of my relationship with you and the appreciativeness of your registering with me. Those are some of the things that we tend to forget, but it's really interesting to see the stats and who actually buys a home in a pre-sale community. It's not the ones that registered when you first put your signage up, because they're so far gone and you've never done a great job of communicating. It's always the one that, if you're writing contracts on Saturday, it's people that register the week before. Those are the ones that are typically buying a home. So we've really, squandered a lot of that opportunity that we've had in the past. So I will say continue communication, whether you've got homes for sale now or it's new communities that are going to be ongoing, and just keeping people engaged and always gauging the interest level of prospects, not just sending out information saying, call me if you have a question, but really putting some calls to action within your messaging to gauge their interest. And whether that's digital engagement, whether you see people that are clicking on a email to go back to your website, or it's people that are on your website and that they're moving around, looking at different floor plans after they have registered, that's all good buying signals that people still have a level of interest. So we can take our 1,000 people that have registered, and the ones that have a digital engagement, we can now focus our energy on there. And it's not difficult to do, but it's really just kind of a matter of understanding our buyers, understanding our prospects, and understanding our data and what they are telling us. And it's really that simple. Oh, I wish it was that simple. I make it seem quite simple, right?
I feel like a lot of a common mistake is putting that sign out and building that interest list too soon, too early. I do. I know there's experts in our industry that would disagree with me, but honestly, if you don't have anything to say and you aren't creative enough to come up with something to say where you can regularly communicate, what's the point?
Well,
what's the point?
All I can do is look at what the stats say, right?
Right.
That's all we can do. And if we look at who's buying in a pre-sale community, is it the people that register when we put the signage up, or 3 months before we go live on sales, or is it the people? It's the people that register right away and then have an opportunity to buy, because we've never done a good job of communication. So even if we can't necessarily give proper pricing or proper floor plan information, we know what we're going to put on that site, and we know what the community is. We bought this land for a reason. So we can always talk about the community. That's one thing that I always love talking about, and talking about the lifestyle, talking about the dog parks, talking about the beaches, talking about whatever it is. We've got that ability, and just to keep us front and center and in mind. So you're bang on, Meredith. I mean, we put the signage up and go like this, right? And think that we're going to have a great conversion.
plan. We have no.
No.
So when people ask me, well, how soon should I start my list? I say, okay, tell me first, what are you going to say on a weekly email to this list?
Yeah.
If you can bullet out 10 little short, quick topics about the local beach, the schools, the golf course nearby, like if you can give me a list of things, then we'll back it up that many weeks. But if you literally don't feel like you have anything to say, collecting names too early doesn't help you, and it only floods your OSC with a lot of calls and emails, and they have nothing to say. And
well,
it keeps them from following up with other people who, you know, might be ready to buy an inventory home at this very moment. So
yeah, exactly
so,
Meredith. I mean,
all right. So as we pull this together, if you had your crystal ball, if you had an unlimited budget, if you had anything that Dave wants regarding home builder marketing and selling, what would you want for your clients kind of moving forward? I mean, we don't know what 2021 holds, but we've been through a pandemic.
We sure have. You're right. And
Cue the locusts. I mean, what else? You know.
Well, that's it. Fires, pandemics, floods, hurricanes. I mean, it's crazy, and we're still standing, which is even crazier. And we're still seeing success,
thriving, actually,
and thriving. Yeah. So what I would wish for moving forward is for us to recognize how fortunate we all are and show gratitude that we are all in this position that we've been given, and understand that we have customers out there who are equally as fortunate and who are willing to trust us to be home owners and home buyers. And I think that's the one thing that I first say is really just having a level of appreciation and gratitude. And that's always my belief and understanding that. So that being said, I also wish that for everybody on a sales team, for everybody on a marketing team, to fully understand the tools that are in place for you and to make sure that you are investing in training your people appropriately. And it's not just training on a CRM, it's not just training on a community, but making sure that everybody is aligned so we can match what our goals and what our vision is to what the expectation is on our salespeople, and holding our teams accountable, sales, marketing, administration, construction, to making sure that the experience for the customer is extraordinary. And in every touch point that we have, marketing, sales, construction, design center, all of those experiences are consistent and extraordinary. That is my wish, and I think it is absolutely achievable. It really is. Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, it is. And you guys have demonstrated it well. Walked your talk with your transparency and relationship building over the years. We love working with you guys. We love referring clients to you. It's fantastic to see you've got these new awesome Google Data Studio reports, which if you're a Lasso client, you don't have those, ask Dave about them because they bring even a whole nother level of insight into the business. And it just makes what we're doing on the digital marketing side, it makes it so easy to say,
it all comes together.
Worth it. This is worth it. This is worth every penny. Yeah,
or we can learn and we can pivot. If things aren't working, we can pivot quickly, and 100%. That's what makes this so incredible, that we have the ability to make those pivots, right? That we're not bogged down by decisions that we have no influence over. And I think that's a really cool
it that way, or because it's how we were trained, or just because we like red. You know, it's like no, you don't. It doesn't have to be subjective like that.
Totally right.
You really can make data-driven but relationship-based decisions. And it's kind of interesting how those two things are two sides of the same coin.
They absolutely are.
But they really are, and they don't have to be seen as just one way or the other way.
Exactly it, Meredith. Exactly.
All right, salespeople and marketing people and home building industry leaders, we've given you a lot to think about in this interview of Meet the Experts. And I think you would agree that Dave and eciLasso is absolutely an expert when it comes to lead management, relationship building, sales conversions, online marketing, all of these things.
All of that stuff.
And they're here to help you, not just sell you a product, but really help you build your business.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly
that is a privilege and something we don't take lightly. So thank you guys for supporting the summit. I appreciate you.
Thank
and
you,
I
everyone.
look forward to all the good stuff we're going to do together come 2021, hopefully at some point in person in a socially distanced appropriate way.
Love it. Good job, Meredith. It's been really nice talking with you. Thank you, everyone.
You too. All right, I got to hit the stop button. Here it is. Okay, bye.